So online, we have the newest video up from YouTube. So that is available on the website, and then also on the YouTube channel. So whichever way is easiest for you to get to. Let me get the website up real quick so I can go through and have you guys download a few items. Okay. So on the website, we have some additional photos that we're going to play with today. You can get either one of these raw. I'm just going to download them both. And then these two should just pop up on your screen. There's some lightning, and we're going to put that into my download so I can find it. And then we also have this, I don't know, it's like an Irish house, something, little house in the prairie. And I'm going to download that also. So I have that. All right, so let me start with raw. And again, we have two raw files that were there. And one, I believe, is the Joshua Tree one. And then the other is Yosemite. I believe that was the other one. So let me start with the Yosemite because that's a daylight one. So you can start to see how raw can be beneficial during the daytime. And then I'll come back and we will play with the nighttime one. Again, I think raw is going to be an important thing for you guys to have down the line. Especially if you stay at this, you stay in the arts and the creative and all of those things, you're going to want to start to shoot. Oh, the link is danielmgross.com. Somebody got it already. Okay. And then in here are the files. Okay, so we're going to be doing 5 and 6. 5 is Yosemite first. I'm going to play with that one. And then we're going to have the Joshua Tree. And then these two, one is lightning and the other one is just a house type of thing. So let me get my first one opened here. So I'm going to just get open. Now, there's a couple ways that raw files can be utilized. We're going to use direct into Photoshop, but if you're doing a lot of photos and a lot of processing, many people use Lightroom. It's also a great way to help you organize your photographs, and you can you can tag them. Okay, so you could use keyword tagging, and you can do that real quick in Lightroom. And I'll get Lightroom up at some point next week or so you guys can see that. It does a lot of what Photoshop does, but it's not Photoshop. Does that make sense? So, but a lot of people just use Lightroom and they become very proficient with it. And it does a lot of the things that Photoshop will do, but it doesn't do everything that Photoshop will do. So they are different programs. And like I said, Lightroom is very good for organizing your pictures, categorizing them, keywording, that type of thing. So you could type in start a whole kind of library of words and such. So I'm going to open up with this picture, and you can kind of see what it's going to look like. But I want to kind of go through just kind of what the Photoshop RAW is, and now you guys can basically access a RAW file. I'm not sure how many of you guys have a higher end camera that shoots RAW, but as I was saying, I think it's going to be something for you to use down the line. So it might be a worthy investment. Kind of look around, figure out what you want. You don't need to buy the biggest camera type of thing. They all work very well. And the cool thing is now that we've got we've had, I don't know, a decade or more of digital cameras. You can get, one that's a couple of years old at a really rock bottom price, and it's going to work as well as anything brand new. Okay, so look into that. So when you open this, I'm not sure if you're going to get the presets. This was preset. I can tell you I've worked on this before. I'm just going to try to set it back to kind of 0. And we're going to just kind of play with it that way. So I'm just making sure my panels are the way I want them real quick. Okay, so this is kind of where it was in the beginning, and it probably was a little bit more, temperature is saying it's a little bit blue. So this is Yosemite in the spring. Who's been to Yosemite? A couple hands. Okay. If you haven't gone, go. I'm going to tell you, it's one place that you're not going to go, oh God, this sucks, I shouldn't have come here. It will take your breath away. I know you've seen pictures, but when you get there and you're standing below these rock faces, and these things are taller than the Empire State Building. I mean, this is how big this place is. You just get your mind blows. So you really should go and experience it. Right now, Yosemite is working on. They have reservations to get in. Part of it's from COVID. So I don't know if that's going to change. I don't know if they're going to keep that. But the cool thing is that kind of keeps the crowds down a little bit. And I don't know if they're going to continue that into the spring or to the summer. But you can go. And again, if you're going to go, check it out and get reservations if you can for right now, because you don't want to show up and say, oh, you don't have reservations, you can't come in. It's a little bit too far a drive for that. It's about, I'd say 5-6 hours. Someone who went there with the family. Yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just completely blows your mind. It's just an incredible place. So this is a picture I shot with my Nikon, and it looks fine the way it is, right? There's really nothing wrong with it. There's probably some dirt and some specks up here, which we've talked about my camera gets, and I'll clean that up in Photoshop. But for the most part, it's here. But I want to go through this. And again, this is the same kind of panel you're going to see over in Photoshop when we look at the filter and we use Camera Raw filter. But the advantage here is I'm dealing with the original RAW file, which means I have a lot more capabilities that I can do with it. So I'm working with not just the small amount of information, say with being a JPEG. I'm now still working with this large, huge amount of information that's in there. And there's a lot of details that are here from the photo that RAW is going to let me pull out. So I'm going to just kind of cool it down a little bit. Let me see what I want. So obviously I can go in this direction. It's kind of more, I don't know, like maybe more pushing maybe sunset kind of colors. Push this way and it gets a little bit too blue. Obviously that's too much. But I may want to bring in a little bit. I'm just looking to see. I'm going to pull in a little bit more green because we do have a lot of green going on. We've got a lot of green down here, and a lot of green starting to take place up here on the hillside here. And it's spring, so we've got like water in the meadows that's here, and maybe I want to pull that out a little bit. So again, I'm pulling out the shadows here. You can see what that's doing, right? So I highly recommend as you're working in Photoshop that, when you're working with a slider or a specific thing, push it all the way, both ways, just to kind of see where it's affecting the photo. So if I look at this, it's not really affecting up here too much. It's affecting really down below, okay? So I might want to pull that up a little bit. I don't want to push it too far, but I'm going to pull a little bit because I'm going to pull in some other things like we got the blacks. Push it too far, we get really dark below. Push it too high, we get kind of, let's say grayed out, flattened. But you can see there's a little bit more detail down here, but this is too much. Okay, so a lot of it is just kind of training your eye to see, right? Here's the white all the way up, blows the sky away. It just makes it all whited out. And this way kind of, again, this is the opposite of the black. So it's going to kind of grade out when we go to a minus all the way, where the blacks, if it was a positive, it was graying it out. So I'm going to pull that down just a little bit. Contrast, again, grayed out, kind of a minus 100, and the plus 100 kind of just a little bit harsh, okay? So a lot of this is kind of just training your eye to see how the picture is going to work and develop best. I'm gonna brighten it just a little bit, not too much. And I'm going to come down here. I want to go a little bit more vibrant. It's going to, in saturation, it's going to pop the color a little bit. Now, don't be afraid to kind of pop the color, even though you might go, oh, that feels a little bit too much. I'm going to push it a little bit further so you can see it. Now that is too much, but when you're looking at photos on the computer, we're looking at them again, RGB. So it's red, green, and blue. But what's happening is light is coming through the picture. It's being projected, okay, just like a TV screen would be. When we print it, we're putting ink down on a paper, and that becomes a light that's reflective, meaning the light bounces off the paper and comes back to our eye. Okay, so right now it's coming directly to our eye through the screen, okay, but when we print it, it bounces off and comes back to our eye. That's reflective. So it's going to be a little duller. Okay, we don't get that pop that we have when we're looking at it on the screen. So don't be afraid to kind of bump it a little bit, push it up just a tiny bit. So if you say, I don't know, 12 is where I want, maybe I'm going to push that saturation up to, like, you know, we'll say 20 or 18, just a little bit more. So when it prints, it's going to give me that color pop that I want. Okay. And I want maybe a blue a little bit. So I'm just going to see in here what I can do. Maybe push the blue a little bit. I don't go too far. Just bumping it up a little bit. And again, I'm playing with the curves here. And again, all of these items, for the most part, you can do in Photoshop. But by doing it here, it gives me a lot more flexibility. And then the cool thing is I'm not being destructive to the photograph. When I open this raw file back up, it's going to go back to the settings I just had or what was there, and I can do anything I want with it. So there's nothing that's destructive with that. And again, I'm just kind of playing maybe that there. And again, I'm just kind of looking at the different ways that I can kind of work with this, push it out a little bit. And I'm just going to see, maybe put the green up a little, the blue a little bit more. It's not bad. See, again, I'm getting that nice blue kind of in the sky. It's not affecting the grass a little bit, but not too much. Too much, too little. It's kind of going here. No, you can feel free. Can you copy? Customize it your own way. Okay. But I want to, again, to show you the power of the raw file. Okay. And then when you're content with it, just hit open. Now you can open as an object, as a smart object. Okay, like we did the other day, the smart filter. So I'm going to do that just so you can see the difference here. So here we are, it's an object, and you can see it's down here, and we have it. And again, I might want to duplicate just to duplicate. But the cool thing is, because it's a smart object, which is a little bit different than the smart filter, which we've used before. With the smart object, when I double click on it, it's going to open back up Camera Raw. Okay, so right here, I'm going to, see, it won't let me do a smart filter because it's already a smart object. But let me undo this layer. I'm just going to rasterize this. So it's just a layer like we normally would find it. Here I can make a smart filter. Okay, and it's the very same kind of code thing here. So don't get confused by it. And then I can open Camera Raw. Okay, this is a filter. Okay, it's not dealing with um, the actual file itself. So I'm going to cancel that. But when I double click on the smart object, it opened back up, and you can see it here at the top. It says Camera Raw 13.1. So this is, I'm working with the raw file itself, not a copy, not a layer. In here, when I open the filter, Camera Raw, okay, it's going to be starting to play with the layer itself, not the filter. Okay, so just a little bit of a difference there with it being a smart object. Now I can go back to it. I can come back and open it back up, and now I'm back into raw, and I can, you know, make adjustments to it. We're going to make it a little bit yellower. Click OK, and it makes that adjustment here and brings it back into Photoshop with the change that I made. Okay, so that's kind of a cool thing about having that smart object, as opposed to just having it as a traditional file in Photoshop. Okay, and I'll open up the next one that way. And at this point, we can go through and do whatever we need to do. Like I said, I know I get these dots up here. That's kind of a thing from the camera. So I'm going to just get the healing brush, do the spot healing. See if we can get that to work here. It's not going to let me do it on the smart layer here because it's a smart object. Let me see if my clone tool is going to work in here. No, it's not. So the downside of this is I've got now, I can't use some of my effects because it's a smart object. I'm going to just rasterize it. So I'm right clicking on the panel here. Should have my convert to layers. Let's do that and see if that does it. Okay. So now I should have my brushes back in a do. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of come in here and get rid of some of that smudge that I know is coming from my camera lens on that. And you can even go through, if say you didn't want this streak from a jet, just going to paint through and let's see what it does right away. See, it's kind of painting it out pretty quickly. Okay, so if something like that is kind of distracting you, you know, feel free to get in there, you know, and again, give it a little bit of a pop, and you can kind of fix those things. Okay, with that. So, and again, we can go through and do all that we want to do with this photo. You know, lighten, darken, shade, shadow, duplicate, traditional stuff that we would do with Photoshop now that it's been opened from the raw file. Again, raw files are collecting a huge amount of information, whereas a traditional JPEG, or in this case, the traditional layer, it's got a much smaller footprint as to the amount of information that we're dealing with. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so it's a little bit different. And again, it's going to give you those details that you want, especially from a lightness, darkness that you don't get with a JPEG. Okay, it just doesn't let you capture that much information. Now I'm going to open up that second JPEG. I'm sorry, the second raw file, and it's called JStar or J Tree Star. And again, it's going back to where I was working last. That's kind of the cool thing about Photoshop. It goes back. Okay, so I'm reset now, pretty much where we were. So when I took this photo at night, I can tell you up here, I took it, it was a 25-second exposure. I used a lens of 12 millimeters, so it's pretty wide, ISO of 100, which is pretty slow for shooting at night. But I wanted to shoot slow so I could get all the details. And then F4 which is the aperture of the lens as wide as it can be. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is, again, go back in with the exposure and start to play with it. And you can see I'm gonna push it way up because I need to get that there. I'm gonna worry about the temperature here, pull off my shadows, push my whites up, okay? So I can get some of that Milky Way coming out. And again, I'm pushing it, see which way it's gonna work. Pull out my blacks. And I don't want to go super far, but I want to be able to get some kind of a little bit of a definition down here with that. Contrast, I don't want to go too far. It gets rid of my Milky Way shot. So I want to kind of keep it a little bit here. I'm going to push the highlights of the area down here. This is actually light coming from Palm Springs down here below. So this white light is light coming up in the sky from Palm Springs. In reality, it looks pretty much pitch black. But you can start to see the stars and you can start to see this is the Milky Way that's happening here. Now, this dotted light, this is a jet. So for 25 seconds, this is how far a jet flew in the sky. And I can leave that in, or I can kind of take that out. Again, just kind of working with it. Green skies aren't good for night. A little bit of purple doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt, rather, I should say, at night a lot of times. But you can see, you can push it all the way to the yellow or all the way to the blue, which is way, way too much. And you can see we're pulling it up, and I'm just gonna bump up. I'm gonna push it so you guys can really see here. You can almost make it look daylight. So this is because it's raw. All this information is going on down here. Okay, if I shot with a JPEG, I wouldn't be able to get any of this. Now it's all, it's grainy, meaning you can see the specks and you can see the dots. So I don't want to overexpose it like it is. But I know that it's there, and I know I can get some of that detail out with my camera raw. Pull it back a little bit, lights up a little, shadows black. So I'm really kind of pushing that. I probably should have shot this maybe a little bit faster than an ISO 100, but it's not too bad. And again, I think it's workable. Just trying to see what's going to give me the best look of that Milky Way, because this is what I'm kind of concentrating on, is the Milky Way. It's what I want. Pull the blacks down a little bit. And then I'm going to come back in and do a little clarity, a little dehazing, which is going to help sharpen things up. I'm going to pull the vibrance and the saturation up a little bit. Now it's getting a little bit too blue for me. Just going to bump that down. I'm trying to get a little bit of that marbling kind of effect in the Milky Way. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of time of picking your sliders, working with them to get where you kind of want it to be. It's kind of a little bit of back and forth. Let me see what else I want to do. Sharpen that a little bit. So that's the before. This is the after. I'm going to make it a little bluer, give it a little bit of the purple. For some reason we'd like to see purple skies, blue skies. And then I've got this, like I said, I want to get rid of this jet, but I'm going to do that in Photoshop, right? So I'm just going to open. We'll say we're happy with it. And now we're here, and now we're back to a normal Photoshop file. Again, I'm just going to make a copy. I'm always working off a copy. I'm going to zoom in. And you can tell, look at this, it's a jet, or it could be an alien, who knows. I'm going to get my, use my spot healing brush. I'm going to get it pretty small. I'm actually just going to click on one end, click on the other, and it's gone. Okay, so I just held the shift key down as I was going from one point to the other, and it made that straight line, which the jet did. And we're pretty good here. right? So we've got a little bit of the Milky Way happening. Um, you know, again, I can come back in here and try to play with it a little bit more. Um, Potentially pull out the sky a little bit more. And I'm just going to make a dupe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on this one, um, I'm going to go to my filter and I'm going to do a sharpen. I want to really kind of get maybe the stars to kind of pop out. So I'm going to use my unsharp mask. And here the preview, you can kind of see it. You can watch it happen on your screen. I'm getting a little bit more sky. Push that up a little bit. I'm getting some more stars that are coming. I'm just going to kind of push to the extreme here so you can see it. There's with the extreme. And I'm going to click OK. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on the blare below. And I'm going to go to the one here, which is the super saturated one. And I'm going to play with maybe overlays, okay, to see what happens here if I put that on top. What is that doing to my picture below? Okay, so it's basically one layer on top of the other to try to bring out some of those stars. Pin lights down a little bit. That's not working, nothing there. We had up here. That's too much. Not doing much here. Let me pull that over. Okay, so I put it on lighten as the effect for the mode, the blend mode for the image. And here I'm just going to turn it on and off. You can kind of see the stars popping, right? It's just kind of bringing out the sky a little bit more. So I know when I print this out, should I print it, it's going to give me a lot more pop, right? It's going to give me those billion stars that are up there in the sky at night happening. And really all I did was I just copied it and then I made some adjustments and then I played with the blend mode. Okay, so again, this is a way that we can kind of work with this. And remember, the blend mode, I can also play with opacity if I want to drop it down. I could, right? I can play with this opacity here of that mode to figure out how much I want. So it's basically one layer is blending into the layer below, okay, using, in this case, the lightning, okay? But on this layer 2 copy, I went and sharpened it, okay? So we're just kind of bringing out the details of the picture, okay? So again, it's kind of something very typical that we will be doing in Photoshop as a way to kind of make things a little bit better. So if we go back to the original picture, it's here. We took off first the jet, okay, no other changes. And then I went back with another layer, I sharpened it, and I came back in with a blend mode of lighten to kind of bring it out a little bit more, right? So you can kind of start to see the Milky Way. And that's kind of a good way of doing things, right? So it's kind of thinking of things in layers. What does one thing look like on top of another? And I think when you start to get into this, you'll start to see that there's a lot of things you can start to do that. Now, one of the tools we haven't gone over yet, and I'm gonna make a new layer just in case I screw this up, is the dodge and burn. Okay, the sponge is kind of a painting thing. You can paint with sponge, but dodge and burn, or go back to photography terms, to lighten and darken areas. So I'm on a brand new layer just because I don't want to mess it up too much. And I'm dodging, which is actually, you can see it happening. It's making things lighter, okay? So I'm all back to where we were. Whoops, too far back. Okay, so if I want to say lighten up this Joshua tree a little bit, I could come over here with my dodge tool, and I'm going to make hardness of 0. Okay, that's good. And what I'm going to do is kind of lighten through. I'm just kind of painting around the tree. And what I'm doing is actually lightening up the tree. And I'm going to come down here to the foreground, and I'm just kind of making it a little bit brighter. Okay. And you can see, let me go over here a lot, and you can kind of see I'm bringing out um, the stones themselves. Okay, so the dodging is a way to kind of lighten an area. Okay, whereas if I use the burn, feel the burn, that's going to be darkening things. So maybe I want to darken it up a little bit in here. I'll make my brush a little bigger, bracket right. And I want to darken it a little bit over here. Get rid of some of this bright spots. So I'm just kind of running over, and I'm just kind of, it's slowly making things darker. It's real subtle, guys. It's kind of a subtle way of doing things. And it goes back to when we used to process film and negatives in the dark room, and you could dodge and burn. You could kind of actually paint on top of your uh, negatives to kind of get things the way you want. So I'm going to go that, and I'm actually going to dodge, I'm going to brighten a little bit into the Milky Way. Just kind of a quick. So I'm just kind of coming through and bringing out the Milky Way by brightening it up a little bit. I don't want to go too far, but I'm going to pull that in, and then I can come back and I can burn it a little bit more. A little bit too heavy there. And then when we look at it, you kind of see where we've really brightened up that Milky Way. Now it might be a bit too much. But again, you can come back in and you can kind of burn it a little bit more. Just kind of come back, maybe a quick overlay. It kind of helps bring out the stars, in this case, in the Milky Way. And that's what we do, right? We do this all the time as a way to enhance pictures. You know, when you're actually out there looking at the Milky Way, you know, you can see it after you've been out in the dark for a while, but it's sometimes hard to capture that on film, or in this case, digitally. So what we're doing is we're just kind of enhancing it a little bit as to um, what it was really like in person. Okay, and we can use the same dodge and burn tools back over here. So let's say I want the sky to be a little darker. I'm going to use the burn, and I'm just going to darken it. Okay, I'm just darkening up the sky. Okay, to get to where I want. And again, I can make this with the brushes that I'm using. If I go too far, I can come back and I can undo that. Okay, so you can see here quite well what we've done. There's the sky before, the sky after, with that dodging. And you can see it and get quite dark in the corners. And maybe it's a little bit too much. Again, come back with the dodge tool. I'm just going to lighten it up a little bit. I'm just kind of stroking it through with my thing. And again, be a way you can kind of maybe darken up some edges a little bit. Or again, if you want to lighten, you can come back here and you can dodge a little bit. Maybe I want the lake to pop a little bit more. And just dodging over the lake as opposed to everything. Okay, so again, a really great way of kind of being able to kind of model or shape your pictures is to dodge and burn. So, you know, think about that as another tool, which we haven't gone over yet, but it's here. The sponge, I'll show you what that does here. I'm just going to make a new layer. It just basically paints. Let's see if we got anything happening here. Why aren't you painting? Come on, Smudge Tool. Oh, it's not working. I don't know why. Okay. It's given a little bit of a texture there, but it's not a huge amount. It's kind of in between the dodge and blur. It's kind of bringing out a little bit of a texture on this picture, um, on that. But dodge and burn, I use these quite often. Again, burn will darken areas where dodge will lighten areas. Okay. It is in this particular case a destructive thing, meaning it's um, actually changing the pixels. But you know that can be, that's again, it's okay as long as you know what you're doing. You know, and I also, like I said, work with a copy. So if you totally screw up, you can go back to the original. But you can see right here what the difference is with that dodge and burn. I'm not crazy about the sky right now. Maybe it's a bit too much. But I like the lake. I like how the lake is, you know, the pond is kind of giving a nice pop down here. That's kind of nice. Nicely done. Okay. Um, so the dodge and burn is a really cool tool that we haven't really discussed. Um, a blur and sharpen, we haven't talked about those tools yet. Again, it's similar. It's like a painting tool. So if I want to blur this up, I'm just making this a little bit larger, looking at my brush, hardness is 0, okay. And I'm just gonna basically, I'm gonna, let me just make a copy so I have that. If I blur, it's a subtle thing, right? It's a subtle blur. It's not, here it is, unblurred. Here it is blurred. So you can see it is blurred in here, but it's subtle. And again, you can focus it, right? So if you hit like the blur filters, it does it over everything. Whereas if you're using the blur and sharpen here, you can actually pinpoint where it's going to work. And in this case, maybe it's too much. I can come back to a sharpen, and I can give me a bigger brush, and I can come back and it's going to sharpen it back up. Okay. Or I can go back to my histories and move it back to where we were last, up here. Okay, so I might want to use the sharpen tool, close that off, maybe just to kind of sharpen up the falls, right around the waterfalls, because I want that to be a focus. This is the upper falls and this is the lower Yosemite Falls down here. So basically the waterfalls from up here, when you're standing, you can kind of see it from a certain angle. It kind of goes over a cascade and then comes to the lower falls. And when you look at the lower falls, this is huge. Okay, so I'm just trying to tell you, this thing is like a waterfall coming off the Empire State Building. That's what you got to think about. It's like, it's crazy. This is the tallest waterfall in North America, right here, if you're looking at the upper fall, lower fall, but the combined is the largest fall in North America. So again, we might want to come through and sharpen up some areas that we're looking at. And again, it's subtle. It's not like this extreme sharpness, but it's a way of doing it. Now, I'm going to show you down here the smudge tool. So you'll be able to see it with the cars. So we have the cars that are here. And then there's a smudge tool. And what this is going to do, I'm going to give you a little bit bigger brush. It's going to blur things and kind of make things kind of go together. See how it's smudging? So it's kind of making like the cars were maybe potentially moving. Okay, probably not the best use of the smudge tool, but I think it's a little bit dramatic here. Okay, so kind of smudged them all off. Okay, so they're still there. The objects are there, but it's kind of a smudge tool. Again, it's kind of, it's a blur, but it's more of a pretty dense blur. Okay, literally it's a smudge. So again, you know, do you want to do that? I don't know. I'm going to move it back in history. So the cars are back to where they were. Okay, but there might be some areas that you want to smudge just to kind of help, again, bring focus to what you're trying to do. Okay, so again, not too bad. We'll look at the beginning. Started off here. Here is the, and you can really kind of see the sharpening happening with the waterfall, the upper fall here. You can really see how it kind of pulled it out a little bit with that sharpen. Again, the sky's a little bit too funky. I don't know. I got a little bit of weird clouds happening. with that. All right. Um, okay, so any questions on the raw? So we went through a raw file with a night shot where you can really, really see the power of raw and how extraordinary you can create things. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to just save it as a JPEG. I don't want it as a on my desktop. I'm going to upload that one to Instagram later. I'm going to save that bad boy. And I think this one too. Let me see. Let me. I'm just looking to see if any of the blend modes kind of make me happy. Oh hell, I'm just going to keep that one too. Do a save as. Just as a JPEG. That's all I need to upload those later down the line. I'll transfer those to the camera phone, to the camera. Put those in the Instagram. All right, so I wanted to show you guys some mock-ups and how that can work. Again, as you're working on these book covers, I think doing mock-ups are going to be important. You can download these things. You can buy these things. And basically what they are is a mock-up. So you can, as we start to work with clients, sometimes it's hard for them to envision what you're trying to do. But if we show them a mock-up, it makes perfect sense to them because they can kind of go, oh yeah, I can see that definitely looks like a book. That definitely makes sense to me. And there's a variety, and you know, some say free, some aren't. But I want you to introduce you to mock-ups. I will give you mock-ups for our next project, which is a record album. I will give you some mock-ups to work with. But I want you to kind of know that these are out there, and this might be something you want to do. Those that have played with Photoshop a little bit longer might want to go, hey, let me go spend some time looking for some mock-ups to kind of, work it into my project. So what that is this is a mock-up, and this is not for a book cover, it's for a sketchbook kind of thing. And basically there's a background, and then there's a file or a layer that's for the mock-up, and it says edit this layer. So basically you're going to double click on it, and you can see it's kind of a smart object, something going on there. And it's basically saying, put your files here. So I'm going to open the Yosemite, Yosemite pick one JPEG. I'm just going to copy it, Command-Alt, Command-C, and I'm going to come back to the mockup, and I'm going to layer it down, paste it down, and I'm going to scale it. I need to make it fill in this whole area. So I'm going to get to where I can, and I'm going to stretch a little bit just to make it happen. Just a little bigger, and I don't want the margin. Put that on top like that. And then I'm going to save it. Okay, and let me just get you so you can see. So basically it says it's PSB. That's basically working with a file that's a template kind of thing. And I'm going to save it. And I can close it. And then I can come back to my initial mockup. And you can see it brought that layer back in with it looking like it's on the cover of the book here. Okay, so now it's on the cover of the page. Here it is without, here it is within. And what's cool is you can see it kind of gave it a little bit of a curve here. It put it in between the spine of the metal here. Pretty nice, right? It does a pretty nice job of being able to mock up things quickly, okay? So look for these kind of, we'll call them the mock-ups. As you're starting to work again, I will give you some of these as we go, especially for our next project, which is going to be some record albums. But you know, those of you who have been working for a while and are, you know, ahead and want a little bit of a challenge, you know, go through, find some book mock-ups. Again, they're free. You know, not all of them are costing money. Um, and just find one that works for you. And then you'll be able to do that. So basically, you're going to open it up. It's going to be a Photoshop file. You'll double click on a layer. You'll be able to paste your information in. And it's going to kind of then mock it up as if it was actually there, like a real, like you took a photograph of it. So like here's a mock-up showing the front and back. Okay, for those that are working the front and the back cover. Okay, and I'm sure there's some others you can go through that are going to show here's the front, back, and spine. Okay, and you can just kind of double click it. Let me just see if it's free or not. Sometimes they're free. Sometimes they say you got to give them an email address or such. Files free, download free for personal use and commercial. Well, I'll be darned. Let me just download. Well, see, it's going to ask for your email. That's all. Give them a fake email. Yeah. Timmy@gmail.com. Or just click the I don't want updates. Don't send me anything. I don't know if that helps. We all getting spammed every day. So, but look those up, guys. They're kind of cool. And I think it's a really good way to start to show your projects and start to show them to clients. Because they can see it. They can go, oh yeah, I can see it now. Because when we show them things that are just flat, oftentimes they just don't get it. They don't understand it. They're like, yeah, I get it, but kind of, you know, here they have things in scale, things are in reference. And it really helps them see it. And a book, maybe the book is easy, but you know, something like a t-shirt, you know, again, we have mock-ups of t-shirts we can do. They're quick, they're easy, and they can kind of really see what this is going to look like on a gentleman, on a lady. How's it going to look like with that particular cut? Okay, so templates are readily available now for us to use. And most of them are kind of Photoshop based. And you can do everything. They have stationary systems and you name it, they have mock-ups for it. So they're really kind of cool. Like I said, some cost, but many are free. So, you know, as a student, take advantage of the free and use them. All right. And as you can see, it does a quick work of putting it in quite quickly. Right. So with a couple clicks, we put that as the cover and we can, you know, still go back and utilize it and use it. You know, if we want to make a change to this or add something to it, we can, and then we can resave it in there. Okay, so we can add text to this sketchbook cover type of thing. Okay, and then you'll save it as a JPEG or whatever you're going to want. You know, most times JPEG, but it could be a TIFF. And you can still scale and size things here. You can, you know, you can crop. You don't want that much of the wood type of thing or the background. You can just crop it down. Okay. And you go from there. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, let me step that back. All right, so don't say it. All right, the last two I want to open up. Again, I'm working with the blending modes and such. We had those two pictures, and one was the sky, and one was the house. I think I put them. I put those in my downloads. There's our castle. Night. Let's save it here. Don't be like me and have a bazillion files on your computer. Maybe I didn't download. Hold on. Can we just open up the website? Okay, so that was my lightning. And then I'm gonna download the house. And I'm gonna open those up both in Photoshop. It's my light. Again, this is just a generic picture that I've gotten. And again, this is the kind of thing where, you know, when you get your camera, whatever, you can start to go take pictures of the skies. Getting lightning is difficult, but, you know, clouds and those kind of things are nice when we do get clouds out here. Kind of nice not having clouds. It's kind of nice being warm, almost 70 when the rest of the country is freezing. Let you laugh a little bit. So, little house on the hill here or on the plains. I want to bring in the lightning over here. So I'm going to Command Alt. I'm going to Command C. I'm going to come back here to my house. I'm going to paste. And we've got that layer above that. Okay. So again, my goal is to maybe change the sky here a little bit, maybe add a little bit of lightning and stuff. So the best way to do that is turn it on, and then let's just kind of go through our blend modes to see what's going to maybe happen here with that. I'm not worried about the bottom because I can bring that back up, okay, and I can make a mask to pull that on, but I'm just trying to see what kind of blend mode I can get happening here without too much work. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, then I'm going to have to come back to, well, that's kind of creepy. Okay. All right, so nothing's quite really working fast. Sometimes it's like, oop, it clicks right away. So I'm going to have to go back and work this picture a little bit. So what I want to do is I'm going to make a mask and get rid of the sky so I can bring in that lightning area. And I might need to scale a little bit. It feels a little bit big, but I'm going to, again, work with my copy. Yeah, harsh it does, right? It does kind of scary. And what I want to do is I'm going to make a mask. So I'm basically going to paint out the sky. I'm going to leave the area below. So I'm going to make a mask down here, add a mask layer mask. And again, remember now we're into painting with our brushes. White reveals, we're in black, black's going to hide. Okay, so we're trying to paint out the sky so we can then bring in the layer above, make that come into play. Now, again, there's a couple ways that we can kind of select that. Oftentimes it's worth trying the quick selection. Okay, and again, we're in that mask mode. Okay, and we know we're on the mask because we've got the mask highlighted here. And I can just kind of go through and let's see if it's going to do it. It did pretty good there. Look at that. We got most of that kind of masked away. That's pretty darn good right away. Okay. And I can double click on the mask itself or get the properties up here. Okay. I might want to feather just a little bit just to kind of soften the edges. Okay. And I'm going to hit delete. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of selecting it, the range, making sure it's the perfect layer here. And you can go by colors if you want to. In this case, I'm letting it select it and you can kind of see it here. And that's the image selection. Again, just ways of looking at it so you can start to feel, am I getting the right tone that I want? And I'm going to, want to do that. Pixels is good. And boom. So now I click the mask, and basically we've masked out that. Now I want to invert that. Okay, so I'm going to select the mask. I'm going to get my screen over so you guys can see a little bit. And there is there's my invert here. So basically the red in this case is the area where I want the mask. That's the area I want to go away. I want to keep the house. I'm going to click OK. And now that's gone, right? So I basically cut out the entire sky in a matter of seconds. Now turn this back on. This is to showing everything. But if I put this below, you can start to see now, I just now have that new sky with the house. Okay, so I made a mask up here of the house and got rid of the sky. Now I still feel like it's a little big. I'm gonna scale this down a little bit because it's just feeling a little bit out of proportion. Oh, that's looking much better already. Those clouds over there are really kind of cool. Well, it looks like it's hitting the chimney. I don't know if I want that. Maybe I'll stretch it a little bit. It's still hitting that house. It sure feels like it. Boom. Okay, so now you can see what we've done is we've replaced from this to add in this way. Now, again, what is some of the problems? Well, some of the problems we still have, and again, this is a photographer, as a designer, you're going to start to look at and see is the colors different, right? We have this beautiful pinkish kind of tinting happening up here in the sky, and we're going to want to add some of that down into here to kind of color balance it. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to work with that layer above, and I might do a little color balance. Okay, so I can do a adjustment, color balance, and I'm going to put it just on the layer below, and I'm going to push it here, get a little more magenta in there, and darken it a little bit, maybe a little too much red, maybe. I'm just kind of playing with that, and I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to the highlights, and again, push it a little bit, give it a little bit of that magenta, but not like it too fake. And then also with the shadows, you could see the difference here. So I'm just kind of pushing it a little bit. Don't want it too yellow, maybe a little there. And again, it's the shadows. And we're good. So again, this is only affecting the layer below, not the sky itself. Okay, so as you can see, the sky is not changing. The only thing that's changing is the layer with a house on it. I'm going to put this to the top so you can kind of see. So starting over to here, you can kind of see we've got now that pink tint happening in a house compared to where it was. Okay, we've totally changed the sky out, but we still have that thing. And now again, we've got that kind of definitely eerie kind of mystery look to it. You know, this is a great picture, be a great for maybe a book cover. Again, we're in a horizontal format, so it might be a little bit more difficult to work with, but I think it's possible to kind of play with that and see, you know, I mean, I'm just going to draw with the marquee tool, but, you know, you could do something like a book cover along that direction, or, you know, move it over a little bit. So we're still in that kind of a vertical format that we typically would find on a book, or maybe it's a coffee table book in this particular case. But you know, we've changed this picture with just a few steps and adjustments, but we're looking at the full picture in its tonal contrast. Okay, so again, we got the clouds in, we got the lightning in, we're happy. But again, now we've got this color balance that's off. So again, we're going to color balance here, and we're kind of blending it in. So we've got those same similar tones happening that would happen from the sky. That makes sense? So we want to kind of work and blend these things together so they're all one. And the job is, the goal is when you're all said and done, you can't tell the difference, right? You can't tell it was faked out. Okay. It's not bad. It's a little fuzzy along the edges here from the masking. So I could go back in and maybe adjust that mask a little bit. I'm going to select the mask itself and maybe come in with my paintbrush. Scale that down a little bit. Just kind of dusting along there. Just trying to get rid of some of that whiteness, that pixels that are happening. I'm just kind of brushing those out. So this is where the details come in, guys, that you're going to kind of want to get in there and zoom in and get your pictures just right. So the mask was done, and again, we're working on the mask, and we're just kind of painting out some of those fragments of the pixels before that are giving it that kind of halo look, right? That glow, that little white glow. And that's kind of a sure sign when you see that somebody faked it and didn't do the job well enough to really fake it, right? So go back through and kind of clean up those pixels that are in there, okay, and get rid of some of that things that are giving it away, those kind of telltale signs that it was a Photoshop composite, a Photoshop pulled together kind of thing. Right, so once you're all said and done, those kind of items will go away. Again, we're on a very soft brush. So it's going back and forth, but we're doing that so we don't get that hard edge. We want kind of a very soft edge, so it kind of blends in a little better with that photograph and what blends in with the sky. I'm not going to do the whole thing. Just going to get a couple little spots in there. Okay, so what we've been doing is just, again, adding to that mask to kind of make it feel like it's there. So again, don't be afraid to zoom in. Don't be afraid to get in there. You know, it looks good here, but again, we're not at full scale. Zoom in, take a look at it, and go back through, right? And that's where the details come into play. And again, look at the picture. Maybe there's something like this is on that picture. Someone drew a heart, maybe that's great, but you're like, Valentine's is over, what the hell with it, right? So you can come back in. Maybe it's just a little spot healing that comes into play. So we got to go, actually, sorry, I was on the mask. I need to click back on the picture, and I'm going to come back through and I can kind of spot heal that out. Okay. So again, look at your pictures, look at what's going on. Feel free, I don't know what this is, but maybe that's distracting from my photo. And again, I'm just kind of selecting things real quick. There's, I don't know, HB, somebody from Huntington Beach tagged this thing. Those kids from Huntington Beach, those surfer kids. Okay, so zoom in. Don't be, afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to get in there, zoom in, zoom out, see how things are looking, how things are going to bring together your objects. All right, questions. Again, well, if you guys can get this and you can understand this and you can kind of, take the lightning and add it to the house and color correct, you are like 90% there in Photoshop. Does that make sense? I mean, this is, the big stuff. Again, we'll get into a little bit more topography, those kind of items. But, for the most part, if you can handle and master, well, what I just did was, take the house and add a sky, you're there. Okay, you're doing well. So it's not homework, but it's, we're going to call it a lab time project. So I want you guys, we're going to be ending up soon here. I want you guys to kind of take some time between now and next class and do a picture similar to this. That makes sense? And again, you can do things, or maybe I want the sky the other way. Click the layer. I can go up here to edit, and transform, right? And I can flip horizontal. And now I just made the lightning come from the other direction. Okay. Totally different picture, right? I mean, boom, you know, that's one and this is the other. Okay, it makes a total different look. You know, so don't be afraid to kind of get in there and start to look at things um, and see how things are in balance. You know, maybe you like this better, maybe the other, I don't know. But it's about looking at things, it's about analyzing, it's about experimenting. Okay, questions, guys?
Is this the also duo as well for next week?
This is not do. I just want you to work on this.
Okay,
You don't
got
have
it.
to turn this in. The book cover will turn in next Tuesday, but this, I just want you to kind of have some files to experiment with and play with. Okay. Because oftentimes it's kind of hard to see what you're trying to do until you kind of see examples. So hopefully everybody has seen what I've kind of done here and it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, let me know and we'll go back through it. Okay. It's not, that's why we're here, right? If we knew it all, we wouldn't have it be in this class. So, you know, feel free if you didn't catch something or you want me to go back over a step or two, let me know so we can get that kind of corrected.
I'm a little curious about
Yes.
how or what everyone is doing for their
Book covers.
project. Yeah, for the book cover.
I'm going to just guess that part of the people are still thinking about what book cover they're going to do, which is okay. We got a week. So on yours, Aaron, you sent the one you had the Agatha Christie, is that right?
Yeah.
I think when I would take your wording, your type, you got a lot of leading between it. I would drop it down a little bit.
Mm.
And what that's going to do, let me see if I think I have it here since we're.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
I think you did. I'm just trying to see that I download it. Didn't yet. Let me just go here. One second. There it is. I'll just do the preview here. So this looks good, right? Really looks nice. Everybody can see this, right? The screen showing up. I'm digging it. Got the characters from the film. You did a nice job of kind of color balancing them. So they're all kind of in there. But I think it would decrease the leading here a little bit, like between Agatha Christie and also down here. And what's going to happen here is when you pull this murder on the down a little bit, it's going to like let this train, the front of the train kind of be here, this circle. This is very nice. So by pulling that down, it's going to let that kind of read a little bit better. And then we can, you know, kind of look at it. It looks pretty good. Maybe a little glow behind. It won't really show up here, but it's going to make the O and the R and the I kind of pop a little bit because I don't think you want to lighten the train too much. But you know, play with that and see. You know, might actually be a little dodge burn kind of thing happening there. But very nicely done. You did the spine also, which is cool. And then you have your back, which you're working on. Here, you got a little illustration. And you've got the newspaper going on behind there. Nice, very nice. So, and I would suggest you know, work it up into a little mock-up. I think that would look sweet on that. So good job, man. Good job. And then who? Angela.
For anyone who's asking if they have to do the spine and back cover, this
No.
is just
That's
this challenge. This
That's
is a
totally
challenge.
totally optional. Totally
Yeah.
optional. So I mean, again,
No,
if
no.
you're like you get this, and you know, I want to have you guys challenge yourselves along the way. And then the other one, someone sent in. This was here. Don't worry about that. On this one, it's small, right? So you want to find images and stuff that are going to work. I think I looked at this in the it's only like 3x4 basically. It's 72 dpi. So we want to be 6x9 at 300. Okay. So again, find it in maybe a similar image or find an image of higher resolution, and then you'll be able to work with that better. And you can already see the pixelization that's happening with the 72 dpi. Okay, so we want to keep these things 300 just so we have that. We're going to save them as JPEGs or PDFs. I think I said save them as a PDF to turn them in. But again, I want to get you guys used to working with higher resolution. So when you get to something, you can actually use it, right? Because right now this is pretty much unusable, except maybe as a small little picture on the internet. Okay, so working with higher resolution pictures will be important, or as close to it as we can. Okay. Questions, other questions? Anything else? Anybody want to add anything? I'm going to pause my recording. Hold on.